This video is basically about flashbacks. Now, there are people that fought in Vietnam and they'll be walking along and something will trigger a flashback and they'll think they're in Vietnam. Now, I get different kinds of flashbacks. Today I went for a quick walk and I stopped at Walmart and I went in. The guy was very nice in the TV section. I needed two 6-foot jumpers for cable TV, not jumpers, but yeah, they're jumpers. So anyway, I want to build a new antenna system with two antennas, and both uh, jumpers from the combiner box to the antennas have to be the same length. So I hung out with him for a little while, and when he handed me one, it only looked like they had one left, and that was in the wrong place. As we were talking, I looked down and I saw another one, and the one that there was only one left was in the wrong place. There was a whole crap load of 6-footers. So I got them, and I walked, and I'm going to go down and walk in the neighborhood. I haven't been in like 6 months. So I'm walking. I walk through the neighborhood, and I know this one girl. She owns a bunch of buildings, and she's got a bed and breakfast. Got two of them. She's on the fire department. She's a lieutenant, and I always look for her, and I'll stand there and talk to her a little bit. So I start crossing the street, and I hear a voice. I turn around, it's her. She's come out of the house. She saw me coming by. She come back out. She called my name. I walked back across. And we start talking about, I said, I missed you at the fire. Or I said, you weren't at the fire. I said, we had a fire in my neighborhood. I met the surf pro. I think I'm saying it right. And she says, oh, so-and-so. Yeah, I said, also Paul Davis. Oh, I know her too. The two girls show up whenever there's a bad fire, and they hand out cards. And Surf Pro, I think I'm saying it right, and Paul Davis, they'll do the restoration of your house. So anyway, I hung out with them, and they knew Susie, the whole thing. So I'm mentioning that. So anyway, she goes, you want to hear a funny story? She says, I had to go to an old age home the other night. There was a fire there, and on the 5th floor. So they had to go up the 5th floor, and they take the elevator. I start getting flashbacks. And I start stopping her. I'm like, you don't go in an elevator during a fire. And I know exactly why. And I'm trying, but she's like, no, we hit the keys. And I'm like, no, you don't go in an elevator. I couldn't stop it. At some point, she says, we got to where we were going to get to. Once they shut the alarm off, the keys to the elevator don't work, and the elevator don't work. It's in a software lockout. So she spent a few hours in the elevator. There's my point. Now, I had to think about this. I'm getting these flashes. And I said, they taught us basic firefighting in high school. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? Anyway, I was told, this is the story. Those buttons you press on an elevator, early ones, they're white. When you touch them, they don't go in. They measure the temperature of your finger and they get triggered. So during a fire, those buttons, this is the story they told us, those buttons will not work in a fire. So you're not going anywhere in the elevator. Second of all, if the fire gets bad enough, you're stuck in there, you'll get smoke inhalation and die. So anyway, she's telling me, yeah, we were stuck in the elevator, the whole thing. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? I'm telling her, I said, they taught us basic firefighting. And I'm like, weird, what the hell's going on? So I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay. They would do things like this. After lunch, we're going to do something different. So picture this. When I went to 6th grade, at lunchtime, you would go home and eat lunch and then come back up. And then you go in your classroom, you sit down, and the teacher would go over by the window and give a signal and hear, all right, children, you got to have a partner next to you, and you go out 2 by 2 like you're going to the Noah's Ark, and you go outside, and there's a couple firemen, a couple firemen, and they got piles of different things, and they have different things they're going to set on fire, and they're going to teach you what extinguisher you use to fight the fire. All right, when you use a CO2 or the soda ones, you turn them upside down and they go off. Anyway, that's what they would do. Now, in science class, they would also reinforce you never take an elevator during a fire. You take the stairs. And this is what's going through my head. She's talking to me, trying to tell me a story she thought was funny, but it wasn't funny to me because I'm taught never take the elevator when there's a fire. That's the flashback I was getting, you know. So when she's talking, all I'm hearing is wah 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 wah, like Charlie Brown, wah 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 wah. And then I mentioned the girls I met at the fire she didn't show up at, and then I said, you know, another thing, they used to teach us social dancing. You had to learn how to do the foxtrot, and one of the things you had to do with dozy do, it was country western dancing, Midwestern United States dance. And the only time I ever used it was me and this girl I used to walk with at the park. We'd go down this narrow walk path, and at the end it would just end. So I taught her to go from the right to the left, and I would go from the left to the right, and we would dozy do. And other people go, "What are you doing?" We're dozy doing. I explained to them, I said, they taught me social dancing, and it stuck. Right? So I'm telling this girl today about this stuff. And then I said to her, the other thing that they taught was how to march for 4 weeks. It's two times a week in high school. You had to march, and the teacher acted like a drill sergeant, and you had to do dress right dress. You had to learn how to do a proper push-up, and because when the instructor says get down and give me 10, you had to know how to get down and get 10. Now, after this teacher's yelling at you and he's got you doing all this stuff, he says, look, the reason I'm doing this, you guys are going to get drafted. You're going to go there, basic training, and you don't want to be the idiot that don't know his right from his left. And it is funny when you talk to someone that went through my high school, they went in the military, and they said, yeah, there's guys, the first day, they can't march. They have no coordination in their legs. And I'm like, oh my God. But they made sure they taught us things that other school systems can't. Not anymore, because basically they make you climb a rope. They had these real thick ropes, and they hung in the gymnasium floor, and you had to climb up and take one hand off and touch there was a metal pipe up there, and then come back down. And you had to use the proper footing, the way the rope wrapped around your leg. You had to do that. Now, years later, we don't do that anymore. It's a safety problem. See, they're trying to teach you basic safety skills, survival skills, and they don't do that anymore. But it was so funny when she started telling me there's a fire, the alarm's going off, and she's getting in an elevator. And I was like, I know how this is going to end. I know how this is going to end, because they told me you don't go in it, because if they shut the power off to knock the fire down, the elevator could be on that line, because back in the old days, there were no backups. Now there's backups, and in this case, this thing had a backup, but the software was wrong. So once the fire alarm went off, you couldn't control the elevator without these special keys. But once the alarm was reset, the keys didn't work, and neither did the elevator work. All right, that's the funny story. I didn't think it was funny, you know, because I forgot to thank her for her service. I've known her for like over, I think, about 10 years now. Whenever I go by there and she's outside, we always stop and talk, and she'll tell me about the latest fire. A lot of them I've been to, and then at some point she'll yell my name. Sometimes she yells my name when she's going by in the truck, in the fire truck, but she's a lieutenant now. But now she was asking me about Joey. I tell her the neighbor, I walk in a different neighborhood now. She goes, you know Joey? Oh yeah, I know Joey. Joey's on the fire department. He's also a power washer. And I hung out with him a few times. That's how I am. I won't tell you how many people I hung out with today. It's amazing. I did hang out with car guys. They had BMWs, ragtop ones. And I'm looking at this guy's bumper, and it's like purple. And it's got all this zigzag stitching on it. I walked over, and what is, he's got a bunch of tie wraps holding the car together. I'm not kidding you. There were pink ones in the front holding the front bumper. He's got a pink roll bar inside the car. The body of the car is held together with white uh, tie wraps. And I got talking to them. The guys were hilarious. And at one point, I think I upset them a little bit. I said, "Oh, I see your type on YouTube. How many cars do you have?" He goes, "I got 5." I'm like, "Yeah, you keep bringing them home. You're all excited when you bring it home, and the other ones are laughing." I said, "Then you don't have any money to work on them, and now you got 5 cars." But I shouldn't have done that, but it is what it is. I had my chance because I pick on those guys and ham radio guys that think they know electronics just because they passed the test. Oh, it's funny stuff. I think that's it. That's it for now.